Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining me on this live podcast on a very interesting subject. It's hopefully a big eye opener. The truth about the paleo and keto diet and why they aren't healthy choices. So, we're really talking about these high fat, low carb diets where they have very few carbohydrates, like as low as 20 grams of carbohydrates, which would mean basically just a sour apple a day. Now, of course, these diets didn't just show up recently. There was the Atkins diet, and even prior to that, a lot of weightlifters were doing, high fat, high protein diets to stay thin and to build muscle. So I'm quite familiar with them. And of course, fad diets have been around for a long time, and they usually have a certain shelf life of about 5 years or so. And the people promoting them make money from all the extra supplements that you have to take because most of these diets are kind of extreme and there's nutritional deficiencies. So the people promoting them will then make their money off of the books, of course, like the Atkins, and selling the vitamins and the supplements. But I just like to say there's no shortcut here in life. I mean, it's like trying to take a pill for your weight loss, which everybody's doing now. And they're going to find out that taking that medication is eventually going to result in not just fat loss, but tissue loss, bone loss, um, muscle loss, and probably even damage to organs in the body. And then, this weight loss pill that's very popular right now will probably, be pulled off the market within 10 years after we start seeing the side effects in about 5 years and then the court cases. So this is the same thinking, thinking you're going to take a shortcut to improving your health by doing something, that's just going to help you just drop the fat and improve your shape. Now, of course, when you do these high fat, low carb diets, it does pretty much stop the blood sugar and you do have a weight loss. But of course, when you don't have any carbohydrates at all and our body's running on the glucose, you have a kind of a loss of glucose tolerance, they call it, in the pancreas just because it's not working and the body's running off of this glucose and you're not consuming it. So it's converting from fat. And so your pancreas has like a type of atrophy where it's just breaking down and not working because you're not using it. So, that's one of the side effects. But I want to talk about more what I've seen because, like I said in this podcast, this is not about research and theories. And that's what a lot of these diets are based on. Like, you remember the old raw diet was based on the theory that cooked food has less vitamins. So that creates this, opposite conclusion that's not based on reality, but based on this, research that was in a lab that cooked food loses its nutritional contents. So somehow that translated into eat everything raw, have all your vegetables raw. And that was the foundation of the raw food diet. And then people like the keto become kind of, becomes like a diet dogma, a cult of followers, that are following this diet and they're all supporting each other. And, they don't even want to hear anything that's not supportive of their diet. And that's the way the raw food craze went for a long time, of course, until, the side effects started catching up to them. On the raw diet, we saw a lot of women, their menstrual cycle stopped, their hair fell out, their fingernails became very weak, and they became very depleted. And of course, they had a lot of different nutritional deficiencies. And of course, eventually they learned, or they're still learning, that, even though you lose some nutrients, particularly water-soluble vitamins and some vitamin C in cooked vegetables, you can still digest them much easier when they're cooked. And you still will get more nutrients in most cases from cooked vegetables. You just have to eat a greater quantity. But the real problem with the raw vegetable diet is you can't digest a lot of raw vegetables, the majority of people. So it doesn't work, which is why, humankind started cooking the vegetables. We were able to eat more, digest more. And it, of course, that's what we've always been doing, with a few exceptions of some vegetables. So the raw food diet was one fad and one extreme, and now we have the opposite extreme. First we were vegetarian, which can be a healthy diet if you know how to do it right. Most people never did the vegetarian diet right either. They just left out all the meat. They should have never, but they had to replace it, and they didn't often replace it with the proper protein, legumes, which is what most of the world is getting their protein on. According to the World Health Organization, 70% of the world population gets their protein from legumes, beans. Just look at South America, black beans, pinto beans. Look at Asia. You've got mung dals, lentils, and Far East, you've got tofu. So 70% of the world does get their protein from legumes, and that's one reason it's proven to be less cancer causing and have more benefits. But unfortunately, people who did the vegetarian diet didn't eat legumes. They just had the vegetables and the fruit and too much grains. And, that left them often weak and low protein, and they had muscle atrophy from the low protein diets. That was the vegetarian diet kind of gone bad. And then they made it more extreme with the vegan by taking out the dairy, which was a big mistake because all the vegetarians in the world, particularly in southern India, where there's 300 million vegetarians in India, the largest population of vegetarians, they all have dairy. In fact, they have ghee, they have milk, and they have paneers and different types of cheeses, and they have yogurt, and they have those with every meal, so it becomes a secondary protein source. And of course, Indians also have beans, so they have their beans, their legumes, plus the dairy, so they get plenty of protein. This is a very healthy diet. But the vegan people, they left out the dairy and didn't do the beans, so that was a big flaw. Created a lot of health problems. I got a lot of clients from that one. But now we're talking about the other extreme now. Instead of the the low protein diet with a no animal protein, now it's the high protein, high fat, all animal protein diet and a bunch of nuts. These keto, Atkins, and paleo diet. And what I've seen, like I said, this podcast is not about research. I'm not going to just go citing research over and over. I've been in practice for a long time, and I've treated thousands of people, and they come to me with these fad diets. So I have firsthand knowledge of what happens after you do them for a while. And that's the insight we're going to share here with you today. What I see, of course, on this, even in the past, even 10 years ago, I would see people coming on these high protein, high fat diets, mostly weightlifters and people in the gym. We used to affectionately call them meatheads. They're just eating a lot of protein powders, eggs, and steaks. So that was before the keto diet. But these things generate out of gyms where they're trying to build muscle and have a six pack, not trying to be healthy. And then I used to get these like 10 years ago or even earlier. I was getting people, young men mostly, in their 30s and early 40s with early stage kidney failure. And that was from the high protein diet, which of course creates the uric acid. And a lot of these people would also have inflammatory joint conditions and gout, which of course we know comes from the meat and protein. In the old days, they used to call gout the king's disease, and because they didn't know why the kings were all getting it, but the peasants weren't getting it. In the Victorian age, the kings were all obese because they were eating all this meat, and then they would get gout, and the peasants, their own laborers, were not be obese, not getting gout, and outliving the kings. And that's because the peasants were having beans; they couldn't afford the meat, and they had physical labor, laboring in the fields. So it turned out to be more healthy to be a peasant and eat your beans and not snack all day and be working in the field in the sun than being a king eating meat and protein all day, which that's why they got the gout. So we still have this problem today with meat eaters. We get them from the South. They're not even on a paleo keto diet, and they'll still get this kidney failure just from having bacon, hamburgers, and steak. That can be kind of a Southern diet to some degree, this high fat animal protein diet. And we get people all the time on these diets that have gout, pain on the top of the toes. But it doesn't just have to be on the top of the toes. I mean, gouty arthritis could be all over the body. It's an inflammatory condition coming from the toxins from all this high protein. But that's just the first thing that I started seeing. And of course, I'm one of the few people treating kidney failure. I haven't found anybody else in North America reversing kidney failure yet. But because it's all herbal, most of these treatments have to be herbal. And if you don't have the herbs, you're not, sophisticated enough to understand these herbs and use these herbs, you can't treat these conditions. But of course, the first thing you do with a kidney failure diet is drop the protein, even do a low protein diet. So this is a big shock to your weightlifter and muscle builder back then they were doing protein shakes, protein powders, eggs, and meat. And so I would tell them low protein, you're on the beans, and that was. But at that point, they have no choice because they don't want to do dialysis, so they would do it. And same with gout. Once you have gout, you have to stop all animal protein with a few exceptions. Okay, a little ghee, a little yogurt here and there isn't going to hurt you, but it's the bacon, the hamburgers, the steak that get you. Even if you were just having leaner meat like venison or rabbit or even white chicken, you probably have been okay. But some cultures they really like the red meat. We do get a lot of Germans. I even get Germans all the way from Germany with gout and kidney failure, and they don't even know about the keto diet. They're just eating a high protein, high fat diet, low carbs. They're just not eating a lot of vegetables and fruit. And it's crazy to leave out a whole food group. I mean, that's your first problem when you look at a diet. The first way that this is not a healthy diet, it's another fad, is they're leaving out whole food groups. And that's never a good idea. I mean, it's all about balance. And in Ayurveda, some people could have more protein, some people could have less protein. An overweight, heavy, clogged up person with fatty liver and congestion shouldn't have much animal protein, while a thin young woman who's menstruating, losing blood, should be eating animal protein. So you can't say, I'm not saying that animal protein is bad. What I'm talking about is this extreme diet where you're leaving out fruits and vegetables, entire food group. Now, of course, there are some paleo diets or carnivore diets or diets that are no longer so extreme, and they're starting to call them low carb diets and doing a little bit more vegetables, so they're already backing off a little bit. But you want these vegetables. I mean, all of the anti-cancer qualities are in the vegetables. Now, we don't really need veggies to live. In a sense, we need the fat, we need the protein, we need carbohydrates, and we need fiber. These are the essential macronutrients if you go to study nutritional sciences. But all the vitamins and minerals are all in the fruits and the vegetables. And all the anti-cancer and health benefits for longevity are in the fruits and vegetables. In fact, if you have cancer, we know the cruciferous family is the most helpful in this case, particularly for tumor type of cancers. Liver cancers and other cancers are different. Every cancer is different. You can't say there's just one diet or one even herb or anything for cancer because they're all very different and in different stages. And then the fruits, for the best fruits are the dark blue and red and fruits. These are the ones with antioxidants, all the vitamin C, this ascorbic acid, and all these great nutrients that are going to be somewhat anti-cancer and immune boosting. And so when you're doing one of these extreme diets, this high fat, low carb diets, you're just like leaving out entire food groups. Never a good idea. It's all about balance. And there is no one diet for everybody. So it doesn't matter what diet you look at online. It's all a fad, a fraud, because nobody can tell you what to eat unless they know you, diagnose you. And of course, there's many factors. I mean, even if you had zero health conditions, to know what a person should be eating, I still have to know, their weight, their size, uh, even their body temperature. I need to know if they get heartburn easy from hot, spicy food. And then we need to tone that down. Well, Some people that overweight, heavy people with low appetite do good with hot, spicy food. Some vegetables, like tomatoes, can be inflammatory and restrict your blood flow. They may have to be reduced if there's a cardiovascular issue. So there's many factors to determine a diet properly, a true therapeutic diet. But we're not going to go into that now. I've spoken on that many times. It's the ancient system of Ayurveda. It's been around for thousands of years. You can go, try to look up online to determine your own diet based on Ayurveda. Ayurveda doctors are the masters of the diet because they give everybody a different diet. Even different stages in your life, you may need a different diet. If you're young, you obviously need more protein than if you're older. And, if you're pregnant or trying to have a child, you may need more protein and you may need, it depend on your exercise that you're doing, many, many factors, and your constitution, your body type, as per Ayurveda. We basically know what diet to feed a person based on their constitution or dosha or body type. And that's what Ayurveda goes. We're not going to change it too radically from what's most suitable for you because Ayurveda matches it to your body. Like some people can digest a lot of raw vegetables and other digestive systems can't. And we can tell this just from your body type, which types are going to be suitable for which vegetables, which fruits, and how much meat and how much animal protein, all based on Ayurveda. It's a very sophisticated system and it's very effective. That's why it's been around for thousands of years. That's why I'm able to improve everybody's digestive issues without any research or digestive enzymes, just by adjusting the diet to what that person is capable of digesting, because I'm diagnosing their capacity. I digress. Back to all the negative side effects of this high-fat, low-carb diet. The other main issues that we get from this high-fat, low-carb diet, of course, is fatty liver and gallbladder congestion. A lot of cases, and these are cases that I'm getting. And then you get inflammation in the colon and constipation and diarrhea. A lot of them getting constipated and diarrhea. The diarrhea is from the inflammation, and sometimes they do this MCT oil, which is also a bad idea. It's very hard to digest. A lot of people get abdominal pain from it. I have to tell them to stop it immediately. So they get colon problems. A lot of them have to take extra vitamins like magnesium and calcium. And of course, when you don't have any grains, you don't get a lot of B vitamins. So you're going to have to take B vitamin supplements. And when you do these high fat, low protein, or high protein, high fat, low carb diet, you end up with no grains. Basically, you've eliminated grains. You've eliminated vegetables for the most part, and you've pretty much eliminated fruit. So 3 whole food categories you've eliminated. It's pretty shocking. I think if Martians came to the planet, they would be shocked on how crazy we eat and would be shocked at this diet. It's really a foolish diet because anybody who's been in practice knows that, you don't want to have too much animal protein. There's no fiber in it. It congests the colon, leads to colon cancer. It blocks the gallbladder, and then you got gallbladder attacks. It burdens the liver, creates too much waste product like uric acid, leading to inflammatory conditions. And of course, it can lead to cardiovascular problems and strokes. Now, if you're exercising in the gym all the time, which a lot of these people doing these high-fat, low-carb diets they probably won't have the cardiovascular problems because they're exercising all the time. But not everybody following these diets is working out 2 or 3 hours a day. So, I've just seen it from experience. This isn't based on research. This is like years of people coming to me on these diets, and I have to pretty much stop them. And sometimes they don't want to stop, and then they come back in a couple of years and they're willing to do the treatment because the gout pain got so much worse, or their kidney got so much worse, or now they've got a tumor in the colon, which I warned them about 2 or 3 years earlier. Once you have a tumor in the body, particularly in the colon, you got to stop all animal protein and increase the fiber. And what has the fiber? That's the beans and the legumes. See, the beans and the legumes are high in fiber, low in fat. They keep the colon clean. Now, of course, if you're trying to keep your blood sugar down, you have to add extra fat. You don't want to do a low fat diet, which was another fad. You can see how we're moving amongst fads over the years, because in the 50s, it was the low fat diet, which was also disastrous. It created dementia, neurological problems, and lower white brain matter in the brain, and then the brain didn't work, and then they had memory problems, they had bone building problems, all from the low fat diet. That was a complete disaster. But we've moved past that, and now we're into the high fat diet. So everything should be moderation. I mean, somewhere in the moderation. You can't just eat fruits all day long like Steve Jobs did, and then he got pancreatic cancer from straining out his pancreas. He did fruits and carrot juice until he died and killed himself from pancreatic cancer from straining his pancreas. So you don't want to go that extreme easier. That was the fruitarian diet, which didn't last too long because people didn't last too long on it. But everything's in moderation. You can't be eating fruit all day long. You shouldn't have too much fruit. You just have a few little apples and pears and blueberries at night, a little bit of fruit between the meals. Main mistake people make with fruit is mixing it with their food, like these smoothies. I did a whole podcast on the the harm of doing smoothies. So please look that up if you believe in smoothies and protein powder. But if you study nutrition, which I did, and definitely if you look at the World Health Organization about his website about nutritional deficiencies, almost nobody in the world has protein deficiency except some people in the middle of Africa. So as long as they've got some beans there, they're not going to be too low protein. Or if they're having chicken once a day, they're not going to have low protein. So nobody in North America has low protein. You're not going to have a protein deficiency. Here in America, we go more the direction of the king, and we have too much protein. So because people are doing like, steak and potatoes and bacon and hamburgers, and then having protein shakes on top of that. And they wonder why, they have some of these conditions, particularly inflammatory conditions and colon conditions, and even growths on their body. Once you have growths on the body, lumps, fibroids, polyps, cysts, all of the tumors, any of these in this category, it doesn't have to be a malignant tumor. But once you have growths on your body, even like I said, fibroids, polyps, cysts, then you want to cut back on the protein. I'm treating people for these conditions, and the first thing we do is cut the protein down to stop these things from growing all over the place. Protein, is needed for every cell, so your body's growing from this protein. But I mean, when you're a child, you can eat a lot of protein, your body's growing, but when you get older, you're just gonna start growing lumps and tumors and cysts and fibroids and excess body weight, unless you're working out pretty hard in the gym and running on a treadmill to keep channel that protein into muscle, which is why athletes and people and the weightlifters love the protein, but they're channeling all that protein into building muscle. But if you're not working out in the gym, you're going to end up with a giant tumor. Women end up with fibroids. I see women have been going to the gym for 10, 15 years doing protein shakes, and then they have uterine fibroids all over their uterus. And then I get people that come to me with polyps, and they're also doing a lot of meat, which of course being low in fiber, you get these polyps in the colon. You get two reasons. One, you're having too much protein, and two, you're having too low fiber to keep the colon clean. So again, back to balance. And if we talk about grains, we shouldn't be like eliminating all grains. People think all grains are bad. Of course, rice and wheat, they're kind of building grains. The Romans used to say rice is for merchants, wheat is for soldiers. So if you're a soldier and you're a weightlifter or a policeman or an army man and you're a physical guy, you're probably going to be more attracted to wheat than rice, even though rice is easier to digest. But they're both kind of like, weight gaining grains. So people panicked and stopped all grains, but that's a big mistake. Because there's many grains that you can lose weight on, like millet, buckwheat, amaranth, and now people are doing quinoa. So I give people quinoa and beans and they're losing weight, no problem. So it's not all grains are bad. It's like what grains for you. But if you're a thin person, you're only 110 pounds and you feel weak, then you should be eating more protein. You should be having more wheat. it depends on the individual. If you're overweight and you're kapha, then you can't be having bread and eating hamburgers and having a high protein diet with a lot of grains. You can have other grains like millet and quinoa is popular. That will work because in the grains is all the B vitamins. And I've seen people that did these grain-free diets and they started talking to me about anxiety and not sleeping. And then they went to the doctor and find out all their B vitamins are super low. And that's the B vitamins is what's supporting your nervous system. So you need to find the right grains for you, the right fruit for you, the right vegetables for you, and the right balance. And that's what Ayurveda does. They diagnose your body type. Ayurveda doctor does your body type, which you can tell. I can tell in the first 5 minutes of just seeing you. And then we know what fruits are good for you, what vegetables are good for you, what grains are good for you. So it's not a matter of eliminating categories. It's eating the right ones that match your, constitution and to some degree your nutritional needs. But I've heard of other problems with hypothyroidism coming also from this high fat diet. And that's because the thyroid gland can easily be congested and just like your gallbladder. So I think that's one of the causes there. But anybody coming to me with almost any health condition, and following this diet, I have to get them off of it, particularly if they've got history of strokes, they've got a tumor cancer, colon issues, gout, kidney failure, gallbladder problems, fatty liver, or high cholesterol, then this diet, can be contributing to those conditions and has to be resolved. Now, just to be fair, there are times where I can do a kind of like no carb diet for a certain period of time. And definitely you want to reduce these carbs down when there's high blood sugar. If there's a very high blood sugar and the numbers are in the 200-300s, then we can just eliminate all the carbs and we can do this type of low carb, no fruit, only certain vegetables. It's not as extreme as the paleo and keto diet, but I do have a diet like that that's used in Ayurveda for very high blood sugar cases. But I'm giving them herbs for the blood sugar at the same time. So and they're stimulating the pancreas. So once we get the blood sugars back to better numbers, then we allow them to start having some grains back. And then, of course, there's certain conditions like epilepsy where we do have a similar type of diet that's used for a short period of time. So even something that's not healthy, like this diet, has some therapeutic cases for certain periods of time for certain people. So nothing is so simple as being good or bad. I mean, a bad diet could be good for a short time. And what people often think is a good diet could be completely the wrong diet for them. So it's never so black and white. And that's, of course, why I help people to find the right diet. And they're very grateful once they finally have learned the right diet for themselves. And sometimes people ask me, do you eat that? And I go, no, I don't eat that. If I start telling you what I'm eating, I'm just a narcissist like the people online telling everybody what to eat. I said, I don't eat like that. I'm not the postmenopausal woman with hot flashes, degenerative bones, and anxiety and insomnia and constipation. That's you. The diet is for you. I'm giving the diet for that individual. And once those conditions get better, we can change the diet too. Just like with the kidney failure, the diet's very strict, but once the creatine and the EGFR numbers get better and their kidneys are not failing, they can change the diet. But you need the herbs to reverse those conditions. Okay, well, I hope that helped you. Hope that helped you just stay away from all fad diets and all diets online and try to listen to your body more. And if you're getting gas and bloating from foods, that's your body telling you don't eat it. If you feel intestinal discomfort, that's your body telling you I couldn't digest it. So, don't get convinced from just watching people regurgitate research online, because this research is, like all science, it's going to be proven wrong by the next scientist who's a little smarter 5 years down the road. And these experiments and these research, they're done on rats, they're done in labs, there's all kinds of flaws with them, and they often don't translate into reality once people start doing them. So again, moderation, follow the golden rules of eating, with proper food combining, not snacking, not grazing, and, not too much protein. And, not a lot of and not a lot of processed foods, of course, without saying that's unhealthy. And I think that's why we went to this extreme because everybody was doing too much processed foods, processed grains, and high carbs. So then they just swung the other direction, which just seems to be human nature, to now do an extreme the other direction of low carbs. This is just the way people are, but these are un very unhealthy diet, probably one of the most unhealthy, dangerous diets that you see. And if you go on YouTube and you type, health risks of keto diets, you can see many doctors talking about the dangers to your long-term longevity by being on this diet. And in fact, some emergency rescue teams, are trained to even ask the people who pass out, were you on an extreme diet like the keto diet? Because they do get people who pass out in this state of ketosis. So they've learned to ask people if you're on one of these extreme diets. So doctors and me, we get along 100% on this subject, that this is a very unhealthy, and I would have to say, foolish diet. So I hope that woke you up to the reality and help you understand that just researching and online and looking up YouTube videos and listening to chiropractors talk about nutrition and keto diet when they're just researching other people online. Everybody's regurgitating the same old information. It's like the blind leading the blind. Just stay away from that. Listen to your body, find a professional, find an Ayurveda doctor. And of course, feel free to consult with me if you want to know once and for all what foods are best for you in the summer, the winter, the spring. It even changes by the season. And I will straighten you out in 30 minutes, and you'll be very glad you finally learned what to eat, and you don't have to keep looking online and be confused for the rest of your life. Then we could get on to treating your health issues instead of, keep changing diets. I have people that have tried 5, 6 diets before they came to me, and they're very happy with the food that I give them because that's what their body wants. All right. Thank you very much. I hope I made my point. I wish you all the best of health and happiness. And I'm sorry if I offended some of you keto and paleo people. It was tough love for your own good. Thank you very much. God bless you all.